So, bed leveling is really important, because if the extruder is getting to different parts of the bed and it's at different heights, it won't be flush, and you'll find that you won't get good adhesion of the plastic to the bed. I'll run through later as well what looks like a good adhesion layer and how you can dial that in. But first off, let's go to leveling. Now, with this machine, it came with little springs here, and they stock have springs. I've changed those over to little silicone washers, and they're on every side, because with these springs you tend to find there's a little bit of movement in the springs, and it will change your leveling over time, whereas the silicone seems to be more rigid and you don't get that little fluctuation. Some people have said that when they get their bed level and they're using these little silicone washers, it stays level for 6 months. I'm still at the stage of not trusting my leveling and learning, so I just keep changing it to learn the process. But I would believe that they could do that. You know, they work nicely. On the actual dials themselves, they have writing on them that says up or down. I mean, basically, if you imagine if you are tightening this screw, so turning anti-clockwise, you will be squishing that washer and then moving the bed down. If you loosen it, the washer will be relaxing and the bed will go up. I mean, to be honest, people who get worried about the up and down thing, just move either way. I mean, I play drums. I've played drums for many, many years. And when you're tuning a drum, you never just tune one way. What you do is you release and tune, release and tune. And what you're doing is you're feeling it. I mean, you know, even if you're undoing your work, you're feeling it. You're feeling where the tension is. But anyway, we'll move on to that in a minute. So I'm going to come out of the move screen. Let me see that. So that was the move screen, which was in settings, move. Now the next thing that you must do when you're doing leveling is warm up the bed and the nozzle. So you go into, so this is the main screen, temperature. This is an interesting thing here actually, that you can set to different modes. If you are ever doing ABS, you need to select that, I think, because it adjusts the temperatures, maybe. Anyway, we're on PLA. But you could switch the fan off as well and put it into cooling mode if you wanted to cool down the whole machine. Anyway, back to what we need to do the bed leveling. So you go into manual. So because I've pressed PLA in the previous settings, it's actually started warming everything up to what it likes to use as presets for PLA. Now for this machine, I like putting the nozzle temperature at 200 and the bed temperature at 60. So what it will be doing is heating it up, and you can see these numbers going up. Now if you had a problem where that wasn't happening, you might have either the thermistor is broken or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure I'd figure it out. But that's what you need to do. Now, the reason you have to do that first is because when you're leveling the bed, you need to make sure the machine is at its running temperature, because as things heat up, they expand. So if you did all your measurements of getting it all nice and snug and everything, and then you heated up the machine, it would go out. It will be even tighter, and you might get that the nozzle starts hitting the glass plate and scratching it. So now we go into leveling. The bane of every 3D printer's life is leveling. So, whilst we're here, actually, actually no, I'll do that bit later. That's that refuel button that I mentioned that means that you can actually get the machine to pull filament through. I don't know what disable motor does. I don't know why. Language, we're in English. Let's not change it. Anyway, so we're over into leveling. Now I'll write all the stages of this. What it's doing now is it's just rehoming in case you weren't at home. But always come back to home. I think that's the key motto of this machine. Always go to home before you turn off and when you turn on. So it's just doing its business. Now, in this machine, I've tried to figure this bit out of putting auto leveling on and off. It's something to do with the BL Touch being able to adjust the level of the nozzle throughout printing when it's, you know, it's adjusting for the measurements it's taken where it will be slightly out. I don't think it works. I think there's something maybe wrong with the firmware or something. It doesn't work very well. I probably need to update it. And to be honest, if you level your bed well, you don't need the machine to do that for you. It's really nice that this machine has this gubbins here and it has other uses. I'm not, you know, disregarding it, but auto leveling, always keep it off. It's taken me hours trying to figure out if it's worthwhile. Just keep it off. Don't touch it. So, the first thing you do is you're going to need to set your Z offset. Now, the Z offset is, so if you imagine the bed is Z, and the offset is how far away the nozzle is from the Z axis. And you want it to be really nice and snug. And I'll show you why when you're printing the filament. You want that perfect. So you imagine as the nozzle is printing filament, if it's printing from like here, it will just come out like a nice slug that's not going to stick to anything. You want it to be just snug enough that it does this. You don't want it down here, otherwise it will block the nozzle and drag and horrible. You don't want it like this. It's never going to adhere, but you want a nice little bit of squish. There's lovely little pictures that show you that as well, but when we do our first print, we'll show you what I'm looking for. You don't want it down here squishy squishy. You want it just a nice little drag line, and when you get that nice little curve, it's perfect. Now, I have got for my colleague David some feeler gauges, and in here the ones that are similar to thickness of paper is about 0.04 millimeters and 0.05. I've actually found, even though I've put these in, after trial and error, I prefer the paper method. So I'm gonna do another video for this.